This is a video that will introduce you to the basics of working with sound files in Praat. The first step is to open Praat by clicking on it in your menu bar, and we get two windows that open with Praat. One is the Praat picture window, which is used for drawing. We're not going to draw today, so let's just close it. The second one is the Praat objects window, and that is what we are interested in loading files into. I'm going to do that by clicking on Open, Read From File, and I select two different files, a TextGrid and a WAV file, and I open them together. You can also open them one at a time. So depending which of these two files we select, you can see that the menu options on the right-hand side change depending what actions are possible with that type of file. So let's first view and edit the WAV file. We're just going to view it actually. We can make it nice and big on this screen. And in this screen, you see speech. So on the top is a waveform and on the bottom is a spectrogram. And we can play or listen to portions of the speech, for example, by clicking on one of these gray-brown bars at the bottom of the screen. You can't hear that because it's in my headphones, but what played were three different syllables of speech. I can also select by clicking and dragging different areas of speech, and I can play them by themselves. I can also hit the select button, and that zooms to the selection that I have made. That's also an option under the View menu, Zoom to Selection, and you can see there are keyboard shortcuts up here that you can use. So if we zoom back out, you can see that it's possible to view speech at varying levels of detail. But what we're actually interested in today is labeling the speech, and in order to do that we need a text grid. So we open the text grid and the sound file together by first selecting them both in the window by clicking and dragging or by holding down the Shift or Control keys. Then click the View and Edit button, and I'm going to make this nice and big on my big monitor. So what you can see is that there's a text annotation already for each of these portions of speech. So what we want to do is first of all select one of them, and this is pal. This is a syllable that starts with a voiceless aspirated stop, and we want to calculate or mark the voice onset time of this consonant. And you remember voice onset time is the time from the end of the closure or the beginning of the release until the onset of modal voicing in the vowel. So we want to put labels that correspond to this interval, and then we want to measure how long the interval is. So in order to do that, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more by selecting, and then I will decide where I want to put my initial boundary. And I'm going to put it right here just to the left of the release burst. And to put in a label, I'm going to want to put that on tier 1, which is where the VOT labels go. And so the first is the first one that I put in. I'm going to do that by saying add a boundary and add it on tier 1. And then I'm going to go to the right hand side and add my second boundary at the end of this interval, and I'm going to do it using a little bit of a shortcut. You can see the red dotted line here, and there are two circles corresponding to that vertical line, and if I click on the top one, that is a shortcut that adds a boundary for me. So now I'm in a position to measure how long this voice onset time really is, and the way I can do that is by looking at this number that's at the top of the waveform window. And so that number is about 0.0636. That is about 64 milliseconds. So I'll just type VOT equals 64 milliseconds. So now I'm ready to label the voice onset times of other portions of the speech file if I want to. And you notice that if I click on a particular portion of the text grid, then it's possible to just zoom directly to whatever is selected. Anyway, rather than labeling another voice onset time, what if I need to save the file and work on it later? Well, that's very easy, but you do have to do it because Praat will not automatically save your work for you. So select the text grid that you need to save and click on the Save menu, then say Save as Text File. Make sure that you give your text grid the extension of .textgrid and then click Save. Your work is done, and that's the basics of looking at a file and labeling it in Praat.